They don't read all the answer choices. They're too lazy to search their minds for exactly what the question is probing. So these forms of mental shortcuts are referred to as satisficing in the psychology literature, and it's our goal to prevent satisficing in online surveys. So here's a typical MTurk hit, the survey. The format's very simple. The respondent pays a few cents, and the requester pays a few cents. The respondent just fills out the survey. Now, wouldn't it be nice if at no additional cost to the requester, if you can change and prevent satisficing if you just change the way the survey is presented? Play. Can you hit play in the back? Thanks.
Great. So in our study, we tested whether this simple way of presenting a survey question, that is, fading in the words one by one, slowly, would make it so the respondents would pay more attention to each question and give more thought to their answers. Now, we call this method, now you'll know that this does two things. First thing we're doing is we're slowing them down. Respondents can no longer race through question after question, just putting down any answer. Second, you'll notice that the way each word fades in draws their attention, forcing them to read the instructions more carefully. And we call this method the CAPTCHA. This is like the CAPTCHA that prevents internet spam. Our CAPTCHA, we hypothesized, would lead to higher quality survey data. But how can we test this? What way can we scientifically see if people take surveys more carefully? So we thought of some experiments to do that.
Yeah. So traditionally, this would have taken many months. You would need a large university grant. You would have had to hire undergraduates and pay them $10 to take your survey. You needed research assistants to administer the survey, etc. Like a long process. But with $88 and 2 weeks of time, Dana and I were able to run this experiment on the crowd. Exactly. We were able to run this experiment using participants from the crowd. Now, we believe this is like a nascent new field for social science research, because there's lots of benefits. We're going to echo John, there's a limitless supply of participants. You can do the experiment really quickly, really cheaply. You can share your code with other researchers by open sourcing, and you can easily replicate the results. So all in all, we believe this is like the ultimate social science research platform.
We conducted our experiment on MTurk. Over the course of 5 days, we had over 800 respondents fill out our survey question. We paid them each 11 cents. Our survey consisted of 32 questions. The first 3 were part of our main experiment. The next 27 were related to demographics and also personality type. And the last 2 questions were optional feedback questions, where we asked the respondents what advice they would give us to improve our survey. So let's go through the 4 different ways that we presented the question. First was our ordinary survey. Then next, in our exhortation treatment, we said to our participants simply, we pleaded with them. We said, please, the survey you're answering is being used for research. Please consider your answers very carefully. Moreover, we put this in bright red text beginning at the bottom of each survey question. Next, we actually slowed them down. So our third treatment, the timing control. In this one, rather than just asking them nicely to fill out our survey carefully, what we did is we actually slowed them down. Then the last treatment, the one you saw before, the CAPTCHA, what we do here is we slow them down for an amount of time equal to the timing control, but we also fade in the words. The fact that this amount of time was equal allows us to then differentiate between whether it's slowing them down or whether it's fading in the words.
So how do you investigate the difference between the different treatments? We need some way to gauge how seriously the respondents are taking our survey. So we showed you this question before. Did anyone notice anything strange about it? Well, we didn't, and neither did some of our colleagues, but if you squint and read the fine print, you'll see it tells you to ignore the question and just click on the title on top. We took this from a recent 2009 study where they coined it an instructional manipulation check, or IMC. And they found that the IMC proxies for general satisficing behavior. So passing the IMC would involve just clicking on the title. Anything else is failing. So the percentage of respondents that pass the IMC is the IMC pass rate. This is the metric we use to conduct our experiment.
Now let's look at how the 4 IMC pass rates compared across the different treatments. So you see the first 2 had a baseline of about 77%. So that means basically that the control versus the exhortation didn't make much of a difference. If you just tell people to take the survey more carefully, that doesn't work. The third one, when you slow them down and force them to wait before they can actually enter in a response, that's worth about 7%. And then the treatment that did best of all was the CAPTCHA. And this CAPTCHA treatment of slowing them down plus fading in the words, we got an IMC pass rate of just above 90%.
Now, it's worth it to note that even in the regular old survey group, Turkers passed 77% of the time. Now, that means they had to really carefully read the description and squint. So that's pretty difficult. Now, we have the 2009 data from the study, where they gave it to undergraduates at NYU and Stanford and paid them $10. We can compare their performance to Turkers, who we paid 11 cents to. And who do you think won? The Turkers beat them. Which just goes to show you that, broadly speaking, they really take their work seriously.
Now we can look a little bit more at the statistical significance between the different treatments. So here what we did is we used a multivariate regression. On the first left-hand side over there, we just look at all of our different treatments. So you see that the CAPTCHA is the only treatment that's statistically significantly different than the control. And improved it by about 13%. Then after that, we also added in other control variables, such as demographics. You see that when we do that, the effect stays about the same at 13%. So it's robust. But the other thing you get is that the significance increases quite a bit. So instead of having a p-value of roughly 1 in 100, it goes to roughly under 1 in 1,000. By adding in these additional control variables, we can also look at which different groups were most likely to fill out the survey well. Which groups would pass the IMC test.
So once again, apart from presentation method, who did better on our survey in general? Turns out women passed 8% more often. People over 25 passed 11% more often, and people over 45 passed 17% more often. Also, we found that the effect of college is also positive, but it wasn't significant. So overall, older people are actually more careful.
Now, one of the results we don't have too much time to talk about, but was an interesting aspect of our study, was our search for which behavioral characteristics would predict satisficing before the respondents had actually satisficing in our test. And we found that the other significant variable here, the number of words given in an optional feedback question, ended up being highly significant. So it's interesting, this subtle, unmanipulable signal of how engaged the survey respondent really was with our survey ended up having extremely high predictive power. It's what Sandy Pentland at MIT's Media Lab, it's the same person who found all the red balloons that we were talking about before. So what he did is he calls this an honest signal. So this honest signal, what was it worth? If you left about 30 more words in your optional feedback than average, that was worth about 9.5% in terms of passing the IMC test. So that's a big response.
So we invite the research community to build upon our ideas and create even better CAPTCHA. I was just talking to people in the hall, why don't we try this, why don't we try that? We could try anything we want and we could run experiments really quickly. So to this effect, we generalize our code and we call it Turk Surveyor. We open source this in Ruby on Rails. You could download it, and we invite the MTurk community at large to use it to run their own surveys. All the infrastructure is there, and the research community to use it to run studies.
And so, in summary, small changes in how you present survey questions can have big effects in terms of the quality of the responses you get back. Second, MTurkers make great experimental subjects. They even beat out the NYU and Stanford students. And finally, if you want an honestly filled out survey, you better make sure that your respondents are middle-aged females who leave lots of feedback.
So, thanks again for letting us present. We want to meet all you at the poster session afterwards.
Thanks.